The street was packed, the usual city noise humming in the background, when suddenly, all eyes turned to one heated exchange. A middle-aged woman, frustration etched on her face, pointed a finger at a black man and spat out the words, "Go back to Africa." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People paused mid-step, their conversations falling silent. The man, calm, composed, locked eyes with her. But instead of anger, something else flickered in his expression. For a moment, the tension was unbearable. Was he going to lash out? Walk away? The woman stood firm, arms crossed, waiting for a fight. But what happened next caught everyone, including her, completely off guard. His response was so powerful, so unexpected, that the entire crowd stood frozen. And then something incredible happened. Stay tuned, because this is one moment you won't want to miss. The crowd held its breath, waiting for his reaction. The man, tall and confident, tilted his head slightly, studying the woman as if trying to understand where her anger came from. He didn't yell. He didn't insult her back. Instead, a small, knowing smile played at the corner of his lips. The woman shifted uncomfortably, as if she hadn't expected anything but rage. People around them whispered. Some pulled out their phones, recording every second. Others looked uneasy, unsure if they should step in. The city's usual rhythm, cars honking, distant laughter, the hum of conversations, faded into the background. Who was this man? Why was he so calm? And why did it feel like he was about to say something that would change everything? The woman, still defensive, opened her mouth to speak again, but before she could, he finally took a step forward. His words, when they came, left everyone hanging on the edge. The man took a slow breath, his gaze steady. "Africa," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Do you even know where your ancestors came from?" The question hung in the air, thick with meaning. The woman blinked, caught off guard. She had expected anger, a heated exchange, but not this. The crowd murmured, shifting closer, sensing something deeper unfolding. A young woman near the front whispered to her friend, "He's got a point." An older man folded his arms, watching closely. A teenager recording on his phone zoomed in, knowing this moment was about to go viral. The woman scoffed, shaking her head, but there was hesitation in her eyes now. "This is my country," she muttered, but her voice lacked the same sharpness. The man took another step forward, his expression unreadable. "You ever wonder how we all got here?" he asked. And just like that, the tension in the air grew even heavier. The woman's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't look away. The crowd had grown, their attention locked on the man who now stood firm, his presence unshaken. His words weren't loud, but they carried weight. "You talk about this country like it belongs to you alone," he said, his voice steady. "But history tells a different story." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. A man in a business suit frowned, arms crossed. A mother with her child on her hip watched with quiet intensity. Even a group of teenagers, normally distracted by their phones, seemed glued to the moment. The woman's hands balled into fists at her sides. "I know my history," she shot back. "I was born here. My family built this country." The man nodded slowly, as if he had been expecting that answer. Then, with a quiet certainty that sent chills through the air, he said, "So did mine." Silence. The weight of those 3 words settled over the street like a storm cloud about to break. The woman's face twitched, as if his words had struck something deeper than she wanted to admit. The crowd waited, hanging on to every second of silence. Then she laughed, a short, forced sound. "Oh, please," she scoffed, shaking her head. "That's not the same." But the man didn't flinch. He took another step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Isn't it?" he asked. "Who do you think built the roads, the buildings, the economy that gave your family a future here?" His voice remained calm, but there was something unshakable in it. "My ancestors' hands shaped this country just as much as yours did. Maybe more." Imagine stepping outside to enjoy a peaceful afternoon by your own pool, only to have someone demand that you leave. That's exactly what happened to Marcus, a hard-working man just trying to relax at his apartment complex. But things took a shocking turn when a woman, let's call her Karen, walked up to him, questioning why he was there. At first, Marcus thought it was a simple misunderstanding. Maybe she mistook him for a guest. But as the conversation continued, it became clear she didn't believe he lived there. She insisted he prove his residency, even though she had no authority to ask. As tension built, other neighbors began to notice. Cameras started recording, and what happened next left everyone speechless. Was justice served? Did Marcus get the last word? Stay tuned, because this story takes an unexpected twist you won't believe. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. He had lived in this complex for years, paid his rent on time, knew his neighbors, and even greeted the security guards regularly. Yet here he was, being questioned like a stranger in his own home. Karen crossed her arms, tapping her foot impatiently. "I've never seen you here before," she said, her tone sharp. "Are you sure you live here?" Marcus pulled out his key fob and held it up. "This unlocks the gate. What more do you need?" But Karen wasn't backing down. Instead, she scoffed. "That doesn't prove anything. Anyone could have that." By now, a small crowd had gathered. Some whispered among themselves, while others pulled out their phones to record. The tension in the air was thick. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, Karen reached for her phone. And that's when everything changed. Karen's fingers hovered over her phone screen as she muttered, "Maybe I should call security." The way she said it made it clear. She wasn't asking for help. She was making a statement, a warning. Marcus let out a frustrated sigh. "Call them," he said firmly. "They know me." But before she could dial, another voice cut through the air. "Hey, what's going on?" A neighbor, Sarah, stepped forward, looking between the two. She lived a few doors down from Marcus and had seen him at the pool plenty of times. Karen turned to her, arms still crossed. "I was just making sure he actually lives here," she said, as if she were doing everyone a favor. Sarah frowned. "Marcus has been here longer than I have. Why are you questioning him?" More neighbors chimed in, and Karen's confidence started to shake. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. "I just think we should all be careful," she insisted. Marcus clenched his jaw, trying to keep his cool. He had done nothing wrong, yet here he was, having to prove himself in front of his own community. And then, just as things reached a boiling point, security finally arrived. The moment the security guards stepped onto the pool deck, the energy in the air shifted. All eyes were on him as he adjusted his radio and approached. Karen immediately pointed at Marcus. "I don't think he lives here," she said, her voice filled with certainty. "He won't tell me his unit number." Marcus shook his head, his patience wearing thin. "Because I don't have to," he replied. "I live here. I pay rent. That should be enough." The security guard glanced at Marcus, then at Karen. "Sir, do you have your key fob?" Without hesitation, Marcus handed it over. The guard scanned it against the pool gate. A green light flashed. Proof that Marcus was exactly where he was supposed to be. For a brief moment, there was silence. Karen's face twisted in confusion. "That doesn't mean anything," she stammered. "People share fobs all the time." The crowd murmured. Some rolled their eyes, while others shook their heads. It was clear who was in the wrong, but Karen wasn't ready to admit it. Then, before anyone could respond, something unexpected happened. A familiar voice called out from behind the guard, and suddenly, the entire situation took a shocking turn. Everyone turned toward the voice. It was the apartment complex manager, Mr. Reynolds, walking briskly onto the pool deck. His expression was serious, his eyes scanning the tense crowd. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Karen immediately stepped forward. "I was just making sure he actually lives here," she said, gesturing toward Marcus. "I've never seen him before, and we need to be careful about who's using the amenities."